Tonight, let me tell you the story of the Star Shepherd of Hermes, a quiet tale from Greece, one that begins not in thunder or battle, but on a dusty road beneath the moon. In those times, long before signposts or lanterns, travelers moved by memory, by stars above, and by the kindness of those who walked before them. They would leave a small stone by the side of the path, one upon another, until a cairn rose like a gentle voice saying, "This way is safe, you are not alone." These were not monuments of grandeur, but offerings of care, and in the hush of the night, they carried meaning deeper than words. For the Greeks believed that wherever a boundary stone stood, so too did Hermes, the watchful guardian of journeys. Imagine the scene. A narrow road winding between olive groves, the air cool after the heat of day. A young shepherd, cloak wrapped around his shoulders, guides his flock slowly toward the next valley. His sandals press softly into the dust, and now and then a pebble shifts underfoot with a dry crunch. Beside the path stands a small cairn, no higher than his knee. He pauses, stoops, and places a smooth stone on top. The sound is faint but sure, like the closing of a page. When he straightens, he feels it. The sense that someone walks near, not a shadow to fear, but a presence steady and quiet. In his mind, he names it Hermes, not as the trickster racing with winged feet, but as the gentle companion of the night road. They said Hermes was born at dawn, clever enough to steal Apollo's cattle before evening. They said he carried messages between gods, slipping between worlds. But in the hush of travel, when a man walked alone beneath the stars, Hermes was something else. A friend of wayfarers, a soft voice reminding, "You are seen." This side of him is easily forgotten, for the tales of wit and mischief are brighter, louder. Yet to the common traveler, to the potter walking to the next town or the healer carrying herbs across a hill, it was this Hermes who mattered most. The cairns were his markers, the stones his silent altars. Even their name, Hermes, spoke of him, and the people trusted that by setting one more stone, they joined a long chain of care, a road that remembered. The shepherd hums to himself as the flock moves onward. Above, the sky is scattered with stars, each glimmering like a grain of salt on dark cloth. The Pleiades cluster low in the east, their light soft and blue. In one telling, these sisters fled Orion, finding safety in the heavens. In another, they mark the turn of the seasons, guiding farmers and sailors alike. The boy knows none of the formal myths, but he knows their glow means the sheep will settle soon, for dawn is still far away. Hermes, too, was a guide of stars in his own way, for to walk with him was to believe that the heavens cared for small footsteps. We might ask, why stones? Why not carvings or wooden posts? The answer lies in their simplicity. Stones endure. A traveler could lift one without tools, without cost. Pile them together, and they rise like a shared promise. We have passed here, and we hope you will pass safely too. In Athens, great statues of Hermes stood at crossroads, their square pillars marking both protection and boundary. Yet even the humble cairns by shepherd paths held the same spirit. To touch one was to greet the god, to nod to those unseen companions of the road. Perhaps this is why, in festivals, people poured oil upon them, decorating them with flowers, as if dressing a friend for celebration. The road was never empty when such care lingered. The shepherd walks further, the path narrowing between low hills. The night birds call, a slow rhythm against the silence. His staff taps the earth with each step, steady as a heartbeat. He feels the watchfulness of Hermes not as a figure beside him, but as a warmth in the chest, a sense that the stars are listening. When he comes to another cairn, he rests his hand upon it. The stones are cool, but not cold. He leaves his palm there, whispering softly a prayer half-formed. May the road be gentle. Then he walks on, his flock following like drifting shadows. And as he does, he wonders, Who set this pile before him? Was it an old woman on her way to market? A traveler returning from war, weary but alive? A child carrying a message? Each stone, after all, was a story, laid without words, waiting to be read by another. In that thought, the shepherd feels less alone. By now, the moon has risen high, casting silver over the valley. The sheep move more quietly, drowsy under the glow. The shepherd thinks of his father, who once told him that Hermes carried not only the quick and the clever, but also the souls of the departed. He imagined then a road of stars, cairns glowing softly along its edges, and Hermes guiding those who walked it toward peace. Perhaps that is why the god is never far from boundary stones. For every crossing, whether of land or of life, asks for a guide, a voice to remind us that the way continues. Tonight, the shepherd carries that story with him like a lantern of memory. His steps slow, the staff grows lighter in his hand, and his eyes rest more often on the cairns that appear now and again, small but steadfast in the moonlight. And so the road lengthens, yet does not weigh heavy. Each stone keeps him company, each star seems brighter. In this gentle companionship, he feels how the road itself grows kind, shaped by hands that cared enough to mark the way. The night deepens and the shepherd moves carefully along the path, the sheep rustling softly behind him. The air is filled with a faint scent of thyme and wild sage, plants brushed by the evening breeze. His footsteps crunch over loose gravel, a sound both lonely and reassuring, like a reminder that the road itself is awake. He glances at the sky, where the constellations slowly turn. Orion leans above the horizon, his belt of stars clear and sharp. The boy has heard the tale that Orion hunted endlessly, but tonight those stars look less like a hunter and more like a signpost pointing the way forward. In moments like this, myths were not grand battles or trials of gods. They were gentle companions, stories that softened the dark. He comes to a wide place where three paths meet, a small clearing between the trees. Here stands a taller cairn, almost reaching his waist, the stones stacked with unusual care. Beside it rests a lantern left by some traveler, its flame now long gone, but the memory of its light lingers. He kneels and adds his own stone, placing it carefully so it will not fall. As his fingers draw back, he whispers again, almost without knowing, "May the road be kind." And in the silence that follows, he feels a presence settle like a cloak about his shoulders. Hermes, the guardian of crossings, often stood at places like this. Not to command, not to startle, but simply to remind travelers that paths are never only ours, they are shared. Some say Hermes was honored with the first and last sip of wine at feasts. Others say that when an oath was sworn by the roadside, it was before a Herm, one of his boundary pillars, that people spoke. The god was not far away in Olympus when such things happened. He was close, as near as the pile of stones under a wanderer's hand. The shepherd remembers his grandfather saying that even the simplest pile was sacred, that to cast it down was to invite misfortune. He wonders if these tales began not from fear, but from gratitude. For in a land where roads were long and nights uncertain, every sign of care meant safety. To protect those signs was to protect one another. The shepherd rests for a time in the clearing. The flock settles around him, hooves shifting in the dust, bodies warm in the night air. He leans against his staff and watches the stars drift slowly westward. His thoughts wander. Perhaps Hermes is not only the messenger of gods, but the messenger of travelers too, carrying silent prayers from one cairn to the next. Each stone might be a word, each pile a sentence, telling a story of people who passed through and hoped others would do the same unharmed. In this way, the road itself became a book, written not in ink, but in earth and stone. The shepherd smiles at the thought, and the weariness in his legs softens. After some moments, he rises again and chooses the left-hand path, the one his father told him leads more gently through the hills. His staff taps softly, the sheep stir, and the journey continues. Along the way, he notices smaller cairns, some leaning with age, others freshly tended. At one, he sees a sprig of rosemary tucked between stones, a fragrance still faintly alive. He imagines a healer leaving it, perhaps to bless those who pass with health. At another cairn, a shard of pottery gleams in the moonlight. Someone has pressed it into the pile, maybe as a token from home. These invisibly across the land. Though he knows none of these travelers by name, he feels bound to them by kindness. The night grows colder, but the stars glow warmly, as if they lean closer to light his way. He remembers a tale told by an elder in his village, that Hermes once lifted a shepherd boy into the sky, setting him among the stars to guide flocks forever. That boy, they said, became the constellation Bootes, the herdsman, walking endlessly after his cattle. The shepherd does not know if the tale is true, but he likes the idea that shepherds have always been close to Hermes, trusted with care of both animals and paths. It makes his own journey feel part of something larger, as if the staff in his hand carries not just weight, but tradition. He comes at last to a narrow bridge crossing a stream. The water runs clear, moonlight silvering its ripples. At its edge lies another cairn, smaller than the rest, yet the stones gleam as if freshly washed. He kneels again, picks a smooth pebble from the stream, and lays it gently on the pile. For a moment, he watches the water flow, imagining it carrying stories downstream to villages unknown. Hermes was said to guide not only travelers on land, but also those at sea. And the shepherd wonders if sailors far away feel the same comfort when stars shine above their ships. Perhaps cairns on land and constellations in the sky are mirrors of one another, both guiding, both reminding that no one walks alone. Crossing the bridge, he feels calmer than before. The flock moves quietly, their bells soft as wind chimes. The path ahead bends into a valley where olive trees line the slopes. He knows he must rest soon, but he is in no hurry. Each step now feels part of a rhythm, a lullaby sung by earth and sky together. The cairns mark not only the way but also his own heartbeat, steady and sure. With every stone he passes, he feels less a solitary figure and more a thread in a great tapestry of journeys, each one crossing the other, all watched over by the same gentle God. And as he walks on, the path winds gently upward, and the shepherd feels the climb in his legs, though the weight is softened by the quiet of night. The stars seem brighter with each step, as though they too are traveling, rising higher as the earth turns. His flock follows closely, their shapes blurring into the silver haze of moonlight. He pauses, near a cluster of stones set apart from the road, a cairn larger than most, carefully tended. Someone has placed a small cup at its base, a simple clay vessel, empty now, but once perhaps filled with oil or wine. The shepherd kneels, running his hand over the cool surface of the stones, and thinks of the many hands that must have touched them before. He adds another pebble, whispering his simple prayer once more. May the road be kind. He settles near the cairn to rest. The night air is crisp, carrying the sound of distant owls. His eyes grow heavy, and for a moment he dreams with his eyes open. He imagines Hermes standing beside him, not as a figure of lightning speed, but as a tall traveler with a calm face, staff in hand, sandals dusty from long journeys. The god's gaze is gentle, his presence more like a friend than a master. In the shepherd's mind, Hermes leans down and says softly, "Each stone is a star brought to earth. Each step is a story, and every traveler, whether waking or dreaming, walks in company." The shepherd does not startle. Instead, he breathes more evenly, as though the words are a lullaby. When he wakes, the stars have shifted, and the flock stirs restlessly. He rises slowly, wrapping his cloak tighter, and sets off again. Soon the path opens onto a wide hilltop where the land stretches in every direction. The horizon glimmers, faintly, hinting at dawn not yet arrived. Here, too, he finds a cairn, but this one is different. It is taller, steadier, almost a small tower of stones. At its top rests a fragment of marble, shining pale in the moonlight. The shepherd feels a hush around it, as though the cairn itself is listening. He knows this must be an old marker, built long ago, tended by many. He lays his final stone here, pressing it gently into place, and feels an unspoken thank you rise in his chest. Not only thanks to Hermes, but to every traveler who ever placed a stone. We might ask what such markers mean for us now, when roads are paved and signs are clear. Yet the truth lingers. Each act of kindness is a cairn, each gesture of care, a boundary stone for the heart. The Greeks knew this when they honored Hermes, not only in marble statues, but in the simplest piles of stones by forgotten roads. They understood that journeys are softened when travelers help one another. The shepherd feels this truth without needing to name it. His body relaxes as he stands beside the tall cairn, and the night no longer feels vast or empty. It feels tended, as though countless companions walk invisibly at his side. The flock grazes quietly, and the shepherd sits on the grass. He looks up, and the stars wheel slowly overhead. In their patterns, he sees both distance and closeness. The shining Pleiades, Orion steady, Bootes rising. He remembers his grandfather's words that Hermes guided souls across boundaries, even into the sky. Perhaps every constellation is such a crossing, each line of stars a story to help travelers find their way. The shepherd smiles faintly, letting the thought rest in him. The night has carried him far, but not in weariness. Rather, it has led him into a deeper stillness, where road and sky, stone and star, all seem part of one great design of care. At last, the first light of dawn begins to spill over the horizon. The hills blush with pale gold, and the sheep lift their heads as though they too sense the change. The shepherd rises, feeling the warmth of the new day in the air. He turns once more to the cairn, its stones glowing softly in the growing light. For a moment, he imagines each stone as a star fallen to earth, gathered here to guide him, gathered here to remind him that the way is never lost. He whispers his prayer once more, "May the road be kind," and then begins to descend into the valley below, staff tapping gently, flock moving like clouds around him. By sunrise, the path feels familiar, as though it has always belonged to him. The cairns no longer seem like strangers' markers, but like greetings from friends. He knows that others will follow after him, adding their stones, whispering their prayers. The road will go on remembering, and as he walks into the day, he feels that Hermes himself walks with him still, not as a distant god, but as a quiet guardian, the star shepherd who keeps both heaven and earth company. So when you travel, think of this story. Remember that each kindness you leave along the way is a cairn for someone else. It might be a word, a gesture, or a small act of care. These are stones that do not crumble. And though we may not see Hermes with our eyes, we may feel him in the quiet assurance that the road is safe, that the night is not empty, and that every step carries us closer to belonging. Tonight's tale of the Star Shepherd of Hermes is not about grand battles or victories, but about the gentle truth that the world grows kind when we mark it with kindness. Just as cairns guided the shepherd through the night, so may simple acts of care guide us through our days. And as you close your eyes now, imagine those cairns glowing softly in moonlight, each one a star waiting for you, each one a promise that you are not alone. Sleep gently, for the road is tended, the sky is watching, and the shepherd's prayer lingers for you too. May the road be kind. Good night, dear listener. If this story has brought you calm, I invite you to rest here again. Subscribe for more quiet myths and gentle tales, and let the stars guide you softly until we meet once more. Good night.